He has taken my place. The words fell from Adama's lips, bitter and laced with resentment, as she watched Kofi move about the courtyard, his hands skillfully mending the broken fence. Welcome to the Hidden Voice, the home of African Folktales channel. Adama had once been the one to oversee the affairs of her husband's household. She was the one who ensured the goats were tied properly at night, that the granary was well stocked, and that the servants moved with purpose. But now things had changed. It had all started when her husband, Baako, a wealthy farmer, decided to hire help for their growing farm. The fields had expanded beyond what their small group of workers could handle, and the demand for labor was high. That was when Kofi had arrived. Kofi was a tall, quiet man with a strong build and a work ethic that set him apart from others. He had no family, no home of his own, and had come looking for work. Seeing his diligence, Baako hired him immediately. At first, Adama had not minded his presence. He was just another worker, after all. But over time, she began to see the difference. The farm thrived under Kofi's watchful eye. The workers respected him. The household ran more smoothly. Even Baako, a man not easily impressed, praised Kofi endlessly. And that was when the jealousy took root. Adama watched as Baako handed Kofi a small bundle of coins. "You have done well, Kofi," Baako said, patting him on the shoulder. "Since you came, the farm has prospered more than ever. You are like the son I never had." Kofi bowed his head humbly. "I only do what I can, master." Adama's stomach twisted. A son? Since when had her husband begun viewing this stranger as family? She turned away sharply and stormed into the house. That night, as Baako sat by the fire, she confronted him. "This man," she said, her voice low but tense, "he is taking my place in this household. I see the way you look at him, the way you trust him with everything." Baako raised an eyebrow. "Adama, what are you saying? Kofi is a worker, nothing more. He helps me manage the farm." "And what about me?" she demanded. "Was I not the one who helped you when you had nothing, who stood by you when the fields were barren? Now you bring in this stranger, and suddenly I am no longer needed." Baako sighed, rubbing his forehead. "You are being unreasonable, Adama. Kofi does not threaten your place in this household." But Adama was not convinced. That night she lay awake, resentment festering in her heart. Adama knew that if she wanted Kofi gone, she needed a plan. She could not outright tell Baako to dismiss him. Her husband was too fond of the worker. Instead, she had to be cunning. She began to spread small rumors among the workers. "Have you noticed how Kofi acts like he owns the farm?" she whispered to the kitchen maid. To the stable boy she murmured, "Baako spends more time with Kofi than with his own wife. Strange, isn't it?" Slowly, the seeds of doubt began to grow. Some workers started looking at Kofi differently, their respect tinged with suspicion. But Kofi remained unchanged. He continued his work diligently, never responding to the murmurs or the occasional cold glances. One evening, as Baako and Kofi sat discussing the harvest, Adama saw her chance. "Baako," she said sweetly, "I heard something troubling today." Baako looked up. "What is it?" She sighed dramatically. "Some of the workers say that Kofi speaks as though he owns this farm. They say he thinks himself above them." Kofi's eyes widened, and he immediately shook his head. "Master, that is not true. I have never—" Baako held up a hand. "Enough." He turned to Adam. "Who told you this?" "Oh, just some of the workers," she said vaguely. "I thought you should know." Baako frowned, deep in thought. Kofi lowered his gaze. He could feel the shift, the weight of unspoken doubt. Adama was not satisfied. She needed Kofi gone. One night she crept into the storage hut and took a small bag of gold coins, her husband's savings. She hid it beneath Kofi's sleeping mat. The next morning, she screamed loud enough to wake the entire household. "The gold! It's gone!" she wailed, pointing to the empty space where the bag had been. Baako rushed in, followed by Kofi and several workers. "Are you sure?" Baako asked. "Yes," she cried. "Search everywhere." And so they did. When one of the workers lifted Kofi's mat and found the bag of coins, the household fell into a stunned silence. Kofi stood frozen. Master, I swear on my life, I did not steal it. Baako's face darkened. He turned to his wife. Did you see him take it? Adama hesitated for a brief moment, then nodded. Yes, she said softly. I saw him sneaking around last night. Baako's expression hardened. Kofi, he said, his voice thick with disappointment. I trusted you. Kofi bowed his head. I have done nothing wrong. But Baako's trust had been shaken. You must leave. I cannot have a thief in my home. His belongings and walked out without another word. He had no way to prove his innocence. For days, the farm felt different. The workers were uneasy. The crops were not as well tended. Even Baako seemed troubled. One evening, as Adama sat alone, the kitchen maid approached her hesitantly. Madam, I have to tell you something, she whispered. Adama frowned. What is it? I saw you, the girl said. That night, you went into the storage hut and took the gold. Adama's breath caught in her throat. You must be mistaken. No, madam, the girl said firmly, and if you do not tell master the truth, I will. Panic gripped Adama. She could not let the girl expose her, but she underestimated Baako. He had been standing behind them, listening. Is this true, Adama? He asked, his voice dangerously low. Adama's face turned pale. I only did it because I was afraid. I thought you were replacing me with him. Baako closed his eyes, shaking his head. You let an innocent man suffer for your jealousy? Silence stretched between them. The next day, Baako set out in search of Kofi. It took him 3 days to find him in a neighboring village, working as a hired hand. When Kofi saw his former master, he straightened and bowed. Baako stepped forward. I was wrong, he said. I let lies cloud my judgment. Please come back. Kofi hesitated, then nodded. I will return, but only if your wife truly regrets what she did. When they arrived home, Adama fell to her knees before Kofi. I am sorry, she whispered. Kofi, ever humble, simply nodded. Let us put the past behind us. Kofi resumed his work, and the farm flourished once more. With Kofi back at the farm, life gradually returned to normal. However, Baako couldn't shake off the guilt of having doubted his most trusted worker. He sought ways to make it up to him. One evening, as Baako and Kofi sat by the fire discussing their plans for the next harvest, something unexpected happened. A group of well-dressed visitors arrived at the farm, accompanied by a reporter carrying a camera. Baako stood up in surprise as one of the men stepped forward and extended his hand. Baako of Konadu Farms? The man asked. Yes, I am Baako, he replied, exchanging a confused glance with Kofi. The man grinned. It is an honor to finally meet you. I am Kwame Mensah, an international agricultural researcher. Your farming techniques have gained attention far beyond this village. Baako blinked in astonishment. My farming techniques? The researcher nodded. Yes. We came across a viral post about your unique and efficient farming methods. The way you organize your workforce, your use of natural irrigation, and your crop rotation techniques have sparked interest among agricultural researchers across the continent. Baako was stunned. But I have never shared anything about my farm. The reporter holding the camera chuckled. It seems someone else did. Kofi, who had been silently listening, finally spoke. I may have something to do with that. Baako turned to Kofi, his expression puzzled. You? Kofi nodded. Master, do you remember when I told you I traveled before coming here? In my previous work, I met people who were interested in modernizing agriculture in Africa. I used to write letters to organizations, sharing ideas about improving farming techniques. Baako's eyes widened. You mean, you wrote about our farm? Yes, Kofi admitted humbly, but only because I saw how innovative you were. The way you blend traditional farming with new methods is something the world needs to see. I sent letters and pictures of our farm's progress to people I had met before. I never thought it would get this much attention. Baako was speechless. So you were the one who brought us recognition? Kofi nodded again. But I did it in your name. You are the one who built this farm from nothing." Baako looked at the researchers, who were now setting up their cameras and microphones. He still couldn't believe what was happening. "But wait," Baako said, a sudden thought crossing his mind. "What is this about an accusation that I am a rapper?" The reporter laughed. "Ah, that's the funny part. Someone online misunderstood the meaning of the word flow when describing how efficiently your farm operates. They thought it was about flow in music, like rap flow. So for a while, people believed you were a famous underground rapper from Sierra Leone." Baako shook his head in disbelief, while Kofi chuckled. "It took some effort to correct that," Kofi said, grinning. "But in the end, it worked in your favor. The mistaken identity brought more attention to the real story, your success in farming." Baako finally laughed, shaking his head. "So I almost became an international rap star without knowing it?" "Exactly," the reporter said, still chuckling. "But now people know you as a farming genius instead." With the researchers documenting Bako's farm, he received invitations to speak at agricultural conferences and partner with organizations promoting sustainable farming. His farm became a model for other farmers in the region. Baako turned to Kofi with deep gratitude. "I doubted you once, and yet you have brought me honor." Kofi bowed respectfully. "I only did what was right, master." That day, Baako made a decision. "From now on, Kofi, you are not just a worker, you are my partner in this farm." And so, the humble worker who had once been accused and mistreated became a key figure in Bako's success. The farm thrived, and their story became one of resilience, wisdom, and the unexpected power of mistaken identity. Hard work and humility will always bring recognition, even in the most unexpected ways. Adama, now humbled, no longer saw him as a threat. Instead, she learned from him. Baako, too, learned a lesson: that trust should never be given blindly, nor taken for granted. And so, the household thrived once more, built not on jealousy, but on truth, forgiveness, and wisdom. Jealousy can destroy, but humility and truth will always prevail. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoy the story and want to hear more amazing African folktales, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like to the channel. Your support helps keep these stories alive and bring our rich culture to the world. Until next time, stay inspired and keep the stories flowing. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoy the story and want to hear more amazing African folktales, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like to the channel. Your support helps keep these stories alive and bring our rich culture to the world. Until next time, stay inspired and keep the stories flowing.